Hello, I'm going to be going over inputting drillers log information, drillers subsurface data information into gINT for the example roadway project that we created in the first video. And so I'm going to open up the gINT KYTC training material here, and then go into drilling input, and then open up the drillers logs for the roadway example. And so for the roadway example, there are 7 holes. And so the first 5 holes are profile holes. You have a cut profile for number 1, fill profile, and if you go down to hole number 6, hole 6 and number 7 are sample holes. So we're going to go through how to input this information into gINT. So I'll push this to the side and open up our gINT file. Our gINT file here has all the default information that we imported. So now I'm going to go through inputting the driller's subsurface information into gINT. So we'll start with hole number 1 for the profile, cut profile. So if we go through, make this a little bigger. So total hole depth for hole number 1 is 12 feet. Start date is 5/30/2016. The light blue values, fields, will be populated on save. For instance, for the end date here, will be populated with the start date if nothing is input. So on save, it'll, at 5/30/2016 will be populated there. So hole type is a cut profile. Hammer method, automatic, rig number 45T. And for refusal, no refusal was reached. Driller name, Mr. Driller. And there's no driller comments shown on the bottom of this log. So we'll move on to the driller's forms. As mentioned before, it's best to work from left to right in the driller's forms. So we'll go through, go back to the main group here. For hole number 1, an observation well was not clicked here, but an immediate water depth was noted, just to mention. Just because an observation well isn't clicked here doesn't mean you possibly can have an immediate water depth there. So going to driller forms, we're going to be inputting in the groundwater the immediate water depth, so that we'll put in the date, and then the reading type was immediate, and water depth was dry, since there's no value specified here. So moving on to, there's no core runs for this. Moving into the driller's soil descriptions. You have your topsoil, and then you have your light brown to dark brown moist clay. Also to mention, with the new update to gINT, for the driller's subsurface log, this type of log includes the bag numbers and the soil profile type numbers, as well as the natural moisture contents numbers. You no longer have to print out a separate profile log for those things to show up on your driller's subsurface log, just a note. Moving on, we'll input our top depth for our topsoil was 0, and soil term was topsoil. Going on to our second soil description, it started at 0.5, and it was light brown. This term was not built in, so you have to include, it was made just then. So it's light brown to dark brown. Moist, and it was clay. And we'll save that, and our depths will be populated. Okay, moving on. There was no rock descriptions here. Soil samples. There was no soil samples. There was a profile. Since it was a profile hole, we need to input information about this bag sample that was taken. So that bag sample applies to 0 top depth to the bottom of the hole, which is 12 feet, and that'll be populated in this gray area. Our bag number was number 2, and it was sampled. So this profile holes tab, you input what bag number, whether a bag number was sampled from that hole. If it was sampled, you click your checkbox for sampled. If it was not sampled, then you input the type, the bag number that soil type was associated with. So for instance, in our hole number 2, there's soil type number 1. This is saying that there was no bag sample taken from this hole, but it's associated with bag number 1, which it means, and that bag number 1 was taken from here. So the soil encountered in hole number 3 and hole number 2 are the same type of soil, but only one bag sample was taken, and it was only taken from hole number 3. So going on, we'll input our jar samples, and those are displayed here. Natural moisture content number 1 at 2.5 feet. So we'll put our 2.5 feet here, and our jar number, that's number 1. 7 feet, and number 2, and 12 feet, and number 3. So hit save, and that's the bag number that those natural moisture contents are associated with. And there was no driller remarks for this particular hole. So going on to hole number 2. So for hole number 2, the total depth was 7 feet. And the hole was started on 5:30. It was a fill profile. Automatic 45T. Refusal was not reached. No refusal. Mr. Driller. No driller comments. We'll hit save. So moving on to driller forms, groundwater. Again, an immediate water depth was noted here. Core runs, there was no core runs for this hole, so we'll put in our driller soil descriptions. So our 0 to 5 feet is topsoil, and starting at 0.5 feet we had a brown, gray, gray clay. Hit save. Okay, no rock descriptions, soil samples. We'll go to our profile holes. So input our information about our bag numbers. So this hole, as mentioned before, is associated with the bag number 1, but it was not sampled from this hole. So moving on to our natural moisture contents, we have 2. So one at 2.5 feet and 7 feet. Hit save. Okay. These 2 holes, the cut profile for number 1, and then for hole number 1, and then the fill profile for number 2 are pretty representative of the other 3 profile holes, so I won't actually walk through those. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to where those are input. Okay, now that I have input all of my information for my profile holes, I got 2 cut profiles and 3 fill profiles. So now I'm going to go into my sampling hole. So I'll just minimize this and then move down to hole number 6. And my hole number 6 is a sampling hole. So if I go down, my total hole depth was 2 feet. And started at 5/30/2016, and it was a sample hole. Automatic 45T, no refusal, Mr. Driller. That should be good. Hit save. Driller's forms. There was an immediate water depth taken, so 5/30/2016. Reading type immediate was dry. And our driller soil descriptions. Soil descriptions include blacktop and DGA. So we're going to go down through here. This will turn blacktop. And then our next step's at 0.6. That's DGA. And then our next one's at 1.5. And that's a brown clay. Driller soil comments is weathered shale. Hit save. We'll go ahead and input the information. Oh, and we need to put our soil sample. Okay, now we'll start inputting our soil sample information. So we have our top depth of 1.5, our bottom depth of 2, our sample number is SPT-1, sample method is standard penetration, recovered thickness is 0.4. Okay, and then moving on to our final hole, hole number 7, and that information is pretty much the same, so I'm going to fast forward through that as well. So now I have my information input for all the holes for the example roadway project. Thank you very much.